Welcome to my third video on the Evans Gambit. And in this video, we're going to have a look at some more sort of, should I say, theory side to the opening, just so you're pretty much covered against most of the options that Black has when he accepts the Gambit. And I've looked at this pretty deeply, so I'm pretty confident all the lines I'm going to recommend for you here are going to give you a pretty decent game. And the one thing to remember when you're playing this Gambit, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I expect that Black can get an equal position. Well, I'm pretty sure I know he can get an equal position. But in a practical game, for Black to find the correct moves to get an equal game is very, very tough because basically he has to dodge a lot of bullets. You've got your AK-47 out, you're firing the bullets at him. And if he's able to dodge all these bullets, he deserves an equal game. And in a lot of other openings, let's take the Spanish opening. So let's just go for the opening moves. E4, E5, knight to F3, knight to C6. And now we're concentrating on bishop c4 because this is in our spicy range. It gives us good attacking possibilities. But if you take bishop to b5, which a lot of people play, and there's nothing wrong with this move, you may get an advantage, but it's now considered after knight to f6 that Black can gain equality, but in a much more boring way. So I'm recommending this bishop c4, and I'm recommending the Evans Gambit, which we're going to look at, because Black may get equality, but he may also get checkmated. And that's not going to happen if you go bishop to b5. Now, the game I want to show you here is, I believe, the first ever time this opening was played. And it was a game played between Captain William Davis Evans himself of the White Pieces. And he was born in 1790 and he died in 1872. He was actually quite an interesting chap. He was a seafarer, inventor, and chess player. And he was born in Wales. And that's just on the, if you don't know, it's on the, let me get this right, the left side of England. I should know that because my father's from Wales. I don't think he was Captain Evans, though. And it was quite funny. He came up this opening on his pocket chess set when he was out to sea. And this was the first chance he got to play this. And it was in about 1825. So this is the first ever game in this opening. And it's still played nowadays. So what an opening to invent. His opponent, Alexander MacDonald, played bishop to c5 here. And against bishop c5, you're able to play the Evans Gambit. And that is b4. So he must, I mean, imagine how excited he must have been to get a chance to play his Gambit, which he's probably been studying on his rocky boat at sea for the last 6 months or something. And he gets a chance to play it. Yeah. This is probably like, you know, Hikaru or Fabiano with their computers. They work, you know, they get their novelty on and move 45. They have to wait 5 years and then they get it in. And it's like, yeah. So, but now, you know, obviously in these days, it was on move 4. So we're going to concentrate still so far on bishop takes b4. We'll have a look at the other moves later on, but they're nothing to be worried about. Bishop takes b4 is the only worrying move. Black takes the pawn, and he asks you the question, where is your compensation? Now, if you've seen the first 2 videos, you should realize that the compensation is on building the center with c3, d4. I'd say that's stage 1. Castling is stage 2. And often attacking f7 is stage 3. These are really the 3 main things you need to remember. Center, castles, f7. Center, castles, f7. So c3. Now, in this game, Black dealt with this move in a very bad way. He played bishop to c5. And in my opinion, this is clearly the worst way to cope with the Evans Gambit. Because you're going to be hit by the move d4. And you're going to lose time because you're going to have to move your bishop again. Now, I did say we're going to look at the theory of this. So I'm going to show you now the other moves available and what you should play. Now, I do recommend you look at this video a couple of times, maybe jump to this point. You know, you don't need to listen to my my aimless mumbling earlier on about Captain Evans. Just jump to this point and go over these lines a couple of times. So what are the main options here? Well, really, bishop to a5 is one, or bishop to e7 is the other option. Now, other moves to me don't make any sense. In the game, we'll come back to bishop c5, And the move bishop to d6 just looks silly to me because it's just blocking in the pawn here. And against this, you can just continue with your normal plan. d4, castles, attack f7. So don't worry about these moves. Now, let's have a look at bishop to a5 first, because in our first two videos, this is what black played. Now, remember, stage one, get the center, d4. Now, black has two moves here. E takes d4 is one of the main options. And if you remember the first two videos I did, you should know white's plan here. Castles. You can't take back with a pawn yet, so you want to castle. And in this position already, black has to be very careful. As we've seen previously, a lot of moves can leave black in a lot of trouble here. Knight to f6 runs into e5. And if other moves, you even have queen b3, knight g5, and simply pawn takes pawn. So the only move we need to worry about here is knight to e7. This is a good move. Black is getting ready to castle, and in some positions he's getting ready to strike out with d5. For example, here, if you went pawn takes pawn, which I don't recommend, black can play d5, and I think black is absolutely fine against this. Now, I found a much more dangerous idea here. Now that the knight has moved to e7, it can no longer come to h6. On h6, the knight defends f7. So to me, it seems logical to start an immediate attack. How can you do that? How can you attack the f7 square? And this is following our real ideas we mentioned earlier on. Center, castles, f7. Well, you can do that by going knight to g5. And now we're going to look at just how many bullets that black has to dodge. The immediate threat is knight takes f7, winning the black queen. And if black tries something like castles here, he's completely lost after the move queen to h5. Threatening checkmate on h7 and threatening to take on f7. And this is a completely one game for white. So that's the first bullet that black has to dodge. What is the only move for black? Well, black has to play d5 here. And this is a bit like the fried liver gambit, but it's a turbo version for white because white has castled and white has better attacking opportunities. Now, the best move here is pawn takes pawn. Open up the position. Keep it open because you have castled. Your opponent has not. Open it up. And here we have the second bullet that black has to dodge. The best move here is knight to e5. Now, if black goes knight takes d5, we're going to win very quickly here again. Can you see what the best move is here? Now, there's a number of options, but I think the best move is an immediate crash, bang, wallop move. And it's a move, if you know the fried liver, and let me very quickly just show you what the fried liver is, because you may have no idea what I'm talking about. The fried liver, very quickly, remember this position, we'll come back to it in a sec, but the fried liver is an opening that goes bishop c4, knight to f6, knight g5. And after d5, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5. This is the fried liver. And if we now go back, let's go through the move, shall we, to the position that we're looking at after bishop to a5, d4, pawn takes, castles, knight e7, knight g5. We get this position. You can see that after knight takes d5 is very, very similar. So again, once you understand ideas in chess, you can put them into practice in other games. So what is the key move here? Well, I believe knight takes f7 leads to a winning attack for white. This opens up the black king. It brings the black king into no man's land in the middle of a dangerous attack here. Black has to take that knight, and now queen to f3 check. This attacks the knight on d5 and the king. Now, if we're able to take the knight back on d5, we're going to have a winning attack. Of course, we should take with the bishop to avoid swapping queens. Don't exchange queens because we're attacking. You don't exchange queens when you're attacking. You try to keep them on. It improves your attacking chances. So black really has to try and move like king e6, trying to hold on to his knight, but now simply rook to e1 check. And after something like knight to e5, bishop to f4. And look at all these pins we're doing to black. I mean, black's completely lost. He's threatened with rook takes e5, and his position is going to just crumble here. White's completely winning. So that's the second bullet that black has to dodge. Let's go back a little bit. So this is after, I'm trying to go through the moves a couple of times so you remember the key points. This is after bishop to a5. So we'll go back to the position here. This is after c3, bishop a5, d4, pawn takes, and now we castle. And now the best move, knight to e7. We start an immediate attack with knight g5. d5 is played. We take on d5, and the only move here is knight to e5 for black. Now here I simply recommend queen takes d4, attacking that knight, defending the bishop, getting one pawn back. So we're not even down material here. Pawn to f6 is really, I would consider, the only defensive idea here. Other moves are going to lead to a lot of trouble. I'm not even going to bother showing you them. And here I recommend rook e1, opening up, bishop to b6, attacking the queen, queen to h4. And I think this leads to a great attacking position. Black should go knight to g6, and now queen to h5, keeping our pieces as active as possible. Pawn takes g5. Yes, we are sacrificing a piece, but after bishop takes g5, look at the activity of our pieces. The major threat here is rook takes e7 check, because the knight on g6 is pinned. How does black defend? Well, if black castles, d6 check, bang, and we're going to take on e7 next, winning the game. The best move here, very hard move to find, is bishop takes f2 check, and then castles kingside, with, I think, an equal position, but still a very interesting position. Now, what else can black do? Well, if black gets greedy and tries something like bishop c5, trying to guard against rook takes e7, we don't have an immediate win. But remember, if you see my other videos, what I always say, if you don't have an immediate win, look at bringing in pieces that are not developed. Knight to d2, and the knight is coming in. If black castles, we have this d6 ambush check again. So bishop d6 might be right. And now there's a brilliant, brilliant win. There is an immediate move here. Rook takes e7 check, because now the knight is not on b1. The other rook can come in. Black can't take with the knight. If he takes to the queen, he loses his queen. He can't take with the king, so he has to go bishop takes e7. And now the last white piece comes into the attack, rook to e1. And here black is in a lost position. There's no way really to stop either rook takes e7 or bishop takes e7. If black castles, we go d6 check, and we simply take on e7 with a winning position. So I know that's quite complicated, that line. I mean, don't worry too much if you can't remember all of that. You can, if you're a more serious studier of the opening, look at that in more detail and go through the moves a couple of times, which, you know, I suggest you do. But I want to make sure I cover you for as much as I can in this video. So we're now going to go back and just cover everything, and we're going to look at bishop a5, d4, and what happens if black plays d6. Well, against this move, rather than castling, which is okay, I would suggest you start an immediate attack against f7. Queen b3 is the best way when the knight is still on g8, because if we go, for example, knight g5, remember knight h6 helps black. But after queen b3, knight h6, the knight will be taken. And here, queen d7 is best. If queen e7, we have d5 and a queen b5 check, winning the bishop. So queen d7, again, a really hard move to find here. It defends f7, but stops any checks. And here I'd recommend simply knight d2 with a big attack here and a good initiative. We're going to castle, keep our pieces flying in. Have a look at this yourselves. Okay, right. Well, after the move, let's go all the way back to the Evans Gambit with b4. Bishop takes b4, c3. I now want to quickly look at bishop e7 and cover you for this move. Well, against this move, we continue in the same idea. So if you ever forget what moves you're supposed to be playing, just remember, attack the center with d4, castle, attack f7. So d4. And here, well, if d6, we can go queen b3. And unlike last time, there's no way for black to defend f7 because the queen can't come to defend it because there's a bishop in the way. And if knight a5, well, we can take on f7 check, and then we can attack the knight with queen a4. And this is very good for white. So the best move after d4 is for black to play knight to a5. He's got to get rid of the bishop here. And here I'd simply recommend bishop d3, and black's best move is d6, but here we win our pawn back by playing pawn takes e5. And after pawn takes e5, knight takes e5, We're going to castle. Yes, black can castle, but this leads to a roughly equal position after queen c2. But I think still great attacking chances. The rook comes to d1. Our knight comes to d2 to c4. Our bishop flies out. This kind of game with a very comfortable game. Now, really, that's all you need to remember after c3 in a very basic way to play the Evans Gambit with a lot of fun. I just want to show you this first ever game now, so sit back and enjoy. Well, bishop c5 was played. Now, before we play d4, because if we do this straight away, black can take on d4 and go check. There's no point doing that. So before we go d4, Evans castled first, much more natural. And then after knight f6, he played d4. Because, again, remember, timing is very important in gambits. And after black takes on d4, he can't gain time with a check now. Bishop b6 played. And what is a typical move here? You really should know this next move. It's so key to this opening. e5, attacking that knight. And already we can see great compensation here. The knight has no good squares to move. So black tried d5. But look at Eddie the e-pawn. Pawn takes f6. Pawn takes c4. And now a little check on e1 first. Let's use that open file. If black was castled here, he'd probably be okay, but he hasn't got time to get castled. King f8. And now a key Evans Gambit move. Can you remember the move? What do you do with your dark square bishop when white has moved his d-pawn away from d7? Bishop a3 check. He can't go d6 anymore because that pawn is no longer there. So he has to go king g8. And when you're attacking, keep creating threats. If you can't see an immediate win, create threats. Pawn to d5, creating a threat against the knight. The knight moved. Bishop e7, creating a threat against the queen. The queen moved, and now white simply opens up the black king. Pawn takes g7. King takes g7. A key moment here. You are attacking. You've got a very promising position. How do you bring more pieces into the attack now? Well, you want to really bring in your big boy, the queen here. The queen's not doing anything on that square on d1. Where would you want to put that queen? Well, I'd love to get it somewhere like g5. And so did Evans. Queen d2, looking to create threats. The threat is queen g5. Black stopped that threat with queen g4. And of course, we don't want to exchange queens. But now there's another problem with black's position. The queen comes to another square. Can you see another good square for the queen here? Queen c3 check. Again, the black king in serious problems. King g8 played. And here it's checkmate in 3 moves. And it's a very nice checkmate. Please, if you can't see this straight away, I really do hope you spend a bit of time trying to work it out. Pause the video here. Please do, and try to work out checkmate in 3 moves. What is the checkmate? It's really nice. Spend a bit of time. Pause the video now. The idea is queen takes h8 check. King takes h8. Bishop f6 check. Beautiful idea. We're clearing the way for the rook. And whatever black plays, let's say queen g7, rook to e8 is checkmate. And that was a beautiful game, the first time the Evans Gambit was ever played. And I do recommend that you look at this video a couple of times because I try to cover most of the theory there. And really a great game. And in the future couple of videos, I'm going to have a look at what happens if black refuses to take the gambit. But look, you've got everything you need now. Go out, get on chess.com, play some games, play against your friends, give this gambit a whirl, and tell me if you have a great victory. If you lose a horrible game, I don't want to know. No, I do. Of course I want to know. If you lose a horrible game, it's all part of the learning process. Practice makes perfect. Well, that's what they say. It doesn't always, but it helps anyway. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching that video, taking the time to do that. I really hope it helps you improve at your chess. And I'll be back again for more videos in the future. Thanks a lot. Goodbye for now.